Now, this is an interesting article that I found on the internet about karma and corona, COVID-19, as an outcome of cruelty towards animals by humanity. Which is interesting because if you do study how karma works, it could work in mysterious ways. Ironically, people slaughter animals and birds and all that, whether it's for gain or sports. Humans do that for the selfish need. And then we have COVID, which ironically came from bats or any other animal out in the wilderness, as they say. It's still debatable to see if this was a man-made thing or if it was just something that really spewed. But anyways, let's just read this, right? It states, in the wake of a global pandemic called COVID-19, the world is enduring drastic human suffering in the form of deaths, draconian rules such as social distancing, and a countrywide lockdown to combat this pandemic. What gave rise to the pandemic? The paper takes position that COVID-19 is an outcome of cruelty committed by humans towards animals. In support of its position, this paper will make references to two Hindu cardinal laws, namely Paramatma and Karma, contained in the sacred Hindu epic Bhagavad Gita, the Gita. So, that's interesting because, the Hindu religion is one of the oldest, if I'm not mistaken, to exist. The Hindu practice, I believe. Let's just search for confirmation. Yep, and as we can see, Google has verified it that the word Hindu is one of the oldest religions in the world. So the fact that there's a lot of Hindu principles that are interpreted in different words, such as the Bible or the Quran, just basic do unto others as others you want done to you, that type of deal, it's evident that certain principles that are spiritual from Hinduism are very evident in different forms of religions. Now let's get back to the original excerpt. Now what's interesting about this article is that they start off with, the prelude, whatever. Now we have the scientific proof that COVID originated in wildlife. They said, as the world tried to cope with and contain the catastrophic pandemic, it also simultaneously wondered in perplexity as to how it all started. The origins of the pandemic, usually in China. Let me just summarize it here. They're saying that it could have came from China or just have a natural origin, which technically came from wildlife if it came from animals, right? Now, let's keep reading. Zoonotic transfer from live animal markets as source of infectious diseases. Many articles trace COVID-19 to a live animal market in Hunan, a province in China. This paper will focus on one article that blah, blah, blah. So you could read that, right? And that just specifies everything. Now, here is a very interesting aspect. This is the meat of the whole blog, article, whatever. This I shall read. Karmic repercussions. The Hindu cardinal laws contained in the Gita. In Hinduism, one of the oldest religions in the world, animal cruelty is perceived as one of the grossest kinds of ignorance and will give rise to serious karmic repercussions for humanity. In order to explain these karmic repercussions, this paper will discuss the most important cardinal rule of karma alongside Paramatma, both contained in the Bhagavad Gita. For the purpose of clarity, the Gita is a Hindu scripture that is a part of the Hindu epic Mahabharata, the Great Dynasty. In Mahabharata, the struggles between two groups of cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas in the age of the Bharata dynasty, is recounted. Mahabharata, along with Ramayana, forms of the two great epics in Hindu philosophical history. The Gita, also referred to as the Song of God, is a conversation between the Supreme Soul, Krishna and a human warrior, Arjuna, who is one of the Pandava brothers. In a deeper sense, the conversation is about an inner conversation that a human being has during his life with his or her belief in a higher power, i.e. the universe. Cruelty towards animals is strictly condemned in the Gita due to the belief that all life is sacred. In fact, the Gita goes further in its condemnation of animal cruelty by stating that it is not only the grossest form of ignorance, but it summons grave karmic repercussions for the killer from the universe. Slaughtering poor animals is also due to the mode of ignorance. The animal killers do not know in the future the animal will have a body suitable to kill them. And this is ironic because every day when I go on the internet, and you might see this all over on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, you see random people just getting killed by lions, tigers, and bears. And some of these people may hunt animals for a living or just enjoy the sport. Again, I'm not here to make assumptions, but at the end of the day, the world has a very interesting way of conducting itself. And of course, the Most High and God works in mysterious ways. Now, this is based off of a Hindu principle. This whole thing is saying that it's based off for us humans to take care of our animals, right? For example, Judges 9 off a Hindu principle. Now, me personally, I believe in Yahweh, God, Jesus Christ, whatever you like to refer that to, okay? But I will not deny the fact that maybe some spiritual principles that involve animals may have repercussions if humans take advantage of it. For example, in Asia, there's this thing going on where people believe that folks are eating dogs and whatnot, and that's, fairly nasty, we could all agree. And even in the Bible, there are verses that condone eating, yet there is both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and also bread and wine for me, your maidservant, and the young man who is with your servants. There's no lack of anything. She took into his house, gave the donkeys fodder. A lot of verses that contribute to, helping animals, right? So that just brings us back to the main aspect. Again, some folks believe in the universe. Some folks believe in the Bible. Some folks believe in Hinduism. Some folks believe in everything else. The point here that we have to take into consideration is that for the folks who are in tune and aware that spiritual things happen before the physical, is this these animals were collectively valued more than we even believe, and this is all karma? Is this why in certain religions they abstain from eating meat and anything that involves the slaughtering of another animal? For example, the Rastafarian religion, they're usually suggested to go vegan. The Muslim religion, they don't really eat certain meats. I believe they eat this thing called halal, something pure. It's safe to say that just maybe, this might be a global karmic repercussion. Is it safe to say that while people ignorantly slaughter animals for their own gain, that maybe somewhere in the spiritual divine world, that meanwhile a lot of people in America, China, all over the world, you have steak, burgers, and all that. And don't get me wrong, it tastes good, but to some extent we have to question ourselves. Are we aware of the spiritual principles in the process of that? Even I myself has found myself leaning more towards a vegan diet, more like a Daniel fast type diet, because it keeps me in a state of energetic, peaceful bliss. Even when you consume animals that may have a spirit, that may be a spirit existing within an animal that has limited communication. Let's go to the chicken eyes. What do you see in the chicken's eyes? You know, it's interesting that animals have very human-like features to a degree, but we've traditionalized the slaughtering of them. You're taking some form of energy within you. So if we look at molecular things, right? Every animal has some molecular trauma within them. Even the whole slaughterhouse analogy is swept under the rug. But let's be real, anything in its final state may leave a residue of its final state. Emotions are powerful, and we may not really sympathize with the emotions of animals. You know, let's just take a look at some of the eyes of animals. When you look at a cow's eyes, what do you see? Do you see a cheeseburger, or do you see an animal to feast on? And that's been going on for decades for ourselves. And, you know, one thing about the world, you know, what goes around comes around, in a sense. And that, I guess that's why we call it the circle of life. When ants, dogs, and you know, dogs are a man's best friend, and dog in reverse is spelled G-O-D. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. You all have, when humans die, I guess ants eat them or something like that. It's you know, when an anteater dies, the ants eat the anteater, but when the anteater's alive, it eats the ants. That type of dynamic. We tend to not really look at the spiritual aspect of things because we're so conditioned in the physical. And this is a matrix. There's no telling how God could work, because what we know as humans is very limited in comparison to what God knows. And God does work in mysterious ways. So I'll leave it here, but I'll let you guys raise the question for yourselves.